Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, August 5th, 2020, and today I'm going to be talking about the states that Joe Biden is allocating $280 million to in the final 3 months of the presidential election campaign. Pretty much after Labor Day, the Biden campaign will be dropping a number of ads across numerous swing states that we're going to be discussing the direct impact of these states and how much ad spending really made a difference in 2016 and compare it to where Biden is spending a lot of money in this 2020 campaign. So in fact, throughout this article, you can see what the Biden campaign is pretty much focusing on. Major takeaways is that they're going from 30-second ads to 60-second ads. That way people will get, in quote, give a fuller and clearer picture from the Biden campaign so people can see the key quality empathy and talk about the soul of the nation. That's a comment that Joe Biden has used since April 2019. So they're using $220 million towards television ads. So that definitely is going to gear towards the older, obviously voting more type demographic group, and then $60 million in digital advertising. Now, digital advertising actually is likely the future of election campaigns. As generations start to get older, more and more people stop watching television. People are more on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And, there's all these discussions about digital advertising, but the Biden campaign is giving $60 million to these, digital advertising in these individual states. So we're going to talk about some of these states because it is really important looking at where Biden is giving his money, comparing it to where Hillary Clinton sent her money 4 years ago. So this is the map. As you can see, I have 190 electoral votes in solid Democratic states that I consider to be locked states, states that Joe Biden does not think he needs to target for the 2020 election. For Donald Trump, he remains in the 127 locked states that the Biden campaign does not think they can jump on and say, we have a possibility of winning these states. Out of all of the states that Biden is spending ads in, Hillary Clinton carried Nevada, Colorado, Virginia, Minnesota, and New Hampshire. The rest all went to Donald Trump. So Biden's campaign is pretty much focused on taking away a number of states from Joe Biden, whereas the Trump campaign is focusing a lot of their efforts on states that they carried 4 years ago that their leads are slipping in. And I'm not talking about the Rust Belt. The Biden campaign withdrew ads in Michigan to reassess their platform. No, it was not to reassess their platform. It's that way they don't say they're giving up the state. I understand they said they have money reserved for spending, but there's nothing within the finance laws that say they have to keep that money spent in Michigan. So Michigan, I think the Trump campaign likely will give up through the election. And they're focusing a lot of their funds from what would have been the Rust Belt down to Ohio and Iowa, which are really big warning signs for the GOP, given that Trump carried those states by nearly 10% in 2016. So Biden isn't making any mistakes, to be honest. I mean, Hillary Clinton made had a number of flaws in her campaign, overestimating support for the Democratic nominee. And when we look across the country, Trump spent a good amount. Pennsylvania was the only Rust Belt state that actually was a shock because Hillary Clinton, they held the DNC here. She ran up fundraising numbers in Pennsylvania. She outspent him by a pretty significant margin. But in Michigan, yes, she outspent Donald Trump, but she only visited it a couple of times. Trump visited Michigan more times than Hillary, and she had a last-minute 2-week push in Michigan that didn't really help her. And then we look at Wisconsin. The Trump campaign outspent Hillary Clinton in this state. And the reason why that's so significant is because those $3 million for Wisconsin were actually allocated during the primary season. So she didn't even visit the state since she clinched the nomination, and you can guarantee it, the Biden campaign is not going to make that type of mistake. If we look all the way, across the Rust Belt, they're not letting anything slide. The only state that's actually a swing state from 2016 the Biden campaign isn't covering is New Mexico and Maine. And I think that's largely because they believe Joe Biden will outperform Hillary Clinton's numbers, and I wholeheartedly agree. We're looking at an electoral map that is going to be shifted to the left regardless of who wins. Trump probably won't hit his 2016 numbers, which is another video that I'm actually going to be coming out with soon, because people need to realize that Trump's potential margin of victory is not even close to where it was 4 years ago. Unless something fundamentally changes about this election, Biden's plateauing off at an 8-point lead nationwide, and that is huge. Obama led Romney by 1.5% on election day. So looking at this map, Joe Biden has 190 electoral votes that he's not worrying about, and I don't think he should be. But these 221 electoral votes, all of these states are in play. All of these states could eventually go to Joe Biden. In fact, if you're surprised that you're seeing states such as Minnesota and Virginia on this map, you also have to realize that Biden could be running ads in parts of Virginia that are near the North Carolina border. If you actually look in depth as to where Virginia ad spending is being targeted, it's all across that southern border, up near northeastern North Carolina, because that group, sure, is a Democratic group, but you also have to realize that he's trying to drive up turnout there. So he'll be running ads Virginia Beach type area just because of the fact that if he does do that, he's going to end up hitting some North Carolina airwaves. Absolutely. So it makes sense. He's also going to be hitting Minnesota, even though that's a state likely to go to him. He's also going to be getting parts of Wisconsin in with the ad spending. And also Minnesota is still at risk. I think Virginia, Colorado, and Nevada and New Hampshire probably aren't as at risk as Minnesota. I think the Trump campaign doesn't think that, but I think they're going to focus a lot of money on Nevada. But at the end of the day, I could easily see Biden carrying those states without a doubt, even if he loses the election. So besides those states, where is Biden, actually competing for? Hillary Clinton didn't compete much for Texas. A lot of the money spent for her, the only $1.7 million, was spent based off of the primary season. Texas was a huge state in the 2016 primary, as it was in 2020. It was one of the Super Tuesday states. It boosted Joe Biden's nomination up front, and Texas is in play now. The Clinton campaign didn't put too much of a play in Texas. There was always that speculation: is Texas competitive? Whatever. It wasn't actually competitive. Trump actually won it by 9%, was up 12 on election day. So Texas was not supposed to be competitive. Now it is absolutely competitive. So it's very, very substantial that the Biden campaign is focusing on Texas and focusing on states such as Georgia and Arizona, states that hadn't gone for the Democratic Party since the 90s, and Texas, the 70s. So the Democratic Party is making a play for states that they haven't won in decades, and they have a realistic shot at it. And I think a lot of this win-back strategy that the Biden campaign is doing is focusing on those Obama states from 2012 and 2008, Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, all states that went to Obama in one election or both, that put him over 270. Now, the Rust Belt is a given. Obviously, Biden was going to focus on those states. But again, Hillary Clinton really only focused on Pennsylvania. She vastly outspent her Michigan margin in Florida. She lost Florida. She spent more money in North Carolina than Michigan. 10 times more in North Carolina than Michigan. And she lost North Carolina by 3.7% and lost Michigan by less than a percentage. That just begs the question: if Hillary Clinton actually allocated money in Wisconsin and Michigan and even more in Pennsylvania, given up the South, said, Trump, you can have Florida, you can have North Carolina, and hungered down the Rust Belt, that's all she needed to win. And I think the big problem with the Clinton campaign is that they were going for a blowout. And the Biden campaign is too. But the problem was Hillary's numbers did not match a blowout. Biden's numbers do. Hillary was not competitive in Texas. Biden is. Hillary was not competitive in Georgia. She led for right before she won the nomination, and then had that little blip where two polls had her up that skewed the average. But overall on election day, she was not expected to win by any means. So Georgia went to Trump. Biden is competitive there. Biden is actually the favorite to win Arizona. Biden is actually the favorite to win Texas. He's the favorite to win North Carolina, to win Florida, to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. These states are Trump states. And, looking at the margins from 2016, if Hillary Clinton hadn't gone for the blowout type election, she could have easily won. And I think that's the main problem. Now, I don't think Biden's campaign is overlooking these states, because when Hillary Clinton cut this final 3-month push, she was not focusing ads in Wisconsin or Michigan. And that's also the problem. Biden is focusing on the states that the Democratic Party jumped over in 2016. And he's saying, we actually care about your issues here. He's bringing up the auto bailout in Michigan. He's bringing up his appeal to the white working class, his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania, obviously in Pennsylvania. So a lot of these ads that are running, Biden is pretty much bringing us back to the status quo. That's his entire campaign. Back to a sense of normalcy. Back to a sense of, politicians having to watch what they say. And I think that actually resonates very well with a lot of these voters. And also, Biden is driving up turnout amongst black voters. Not only is Biden driving up turnout, he did that in the primary. Biden was a turnout machine in the primary, but Trump is a turnout machine in the general election against his own vision. Donald Trump is single-handedly driving up black turnout nationwide with his constant comments about the Black Lives Matter movement. And, Joe Biden is capitalizing on that. The Black Lives Matter movement is wholeheartedly behind the Biden administration, or the Biden campaign. And also, if you look at where the donation is going, a lot of the Black Lives Matter money is going to the Biden campaign and going to Democrat congressional figures and to Democrat Senate figures. So if we're looking at where this money is going from, there's a reason why Biden is doing way better than Hillary Clinton in terms of fundraising. In August 2016, Hillary Clinton hit her biggest, actually it may have been August or July, her biggest fundraising amount, which was $63 million. In June, Biden raised $114 million or 120 cents. I know it was a very big amount. It was double what Hillary had made in her biggest month. So this election, is nowhere near 2016 in terms of money. And yes, in 2008 and 2012, there was more money raised for Obama than for Hillary Clinton, but we likely could see Biden raise more money than Obama in 2008 and 2012, given that the Democratic Party is showing Trump as a dire threat. That's not what they did for Mitt Romney. That's not what they did for John McCain. Yes, they obviously, made it seem very extreme, but Bill Maher said it best. He told Mitt Romney, I donated $1 million to the Obama campaign. I would give you $1 million to be president right now. So obviously, the Democratic Party is working against a new enemy and someone that has been in the White House for the past 4 years. They have a record to attack, and it looks like they're doing that in just the right states. I honestly don't think the Biden campaign should be too worried about states such as Indiana and Missouri. These are two states that were competitive in 2008, and Montana that were competitive before. But I think the Biden campaign is starting to realize, we shouldn't be wasting money on these states. The Clinton campaign didn't waste any money in Montana. They focused a little bit of money in Indiana for whatever reason. Didn't really make sense. They focused money in Missouri. Didn't make sense. Looking at these states now, the Biden campaign doesn't seem to be wasting a dollar on these states. Obviously, he'll have not ground campaigns, but he'll obviously have just workers in all of these states just to drive up turnout for the popular vote. But obviously, these 221 electoral votes are important. And you also have to realize the Biden campaign is doing everything virtually. So they're getting this money with virtual rallies, no in-person rallies. And I think that's also pretty substantial. The Biden campaign is waiting to announce their VP, hopefully this week or next week, right before the convention. But when we're looking at all of these toss-up states, I think one thing that also is going to hurt Donald Trump is the fact that he's running a ground campaign. You also have to realize this has nothing to do with ad spending, by the way, but he is running a ground campaign. I believe they released a number saying they knocked over 1 million doors last month. I can guarantee it. If someone comes to my door during this time period and says, hey, can you vote for me? The answer is an automatic no. I don't care, if I even completely agree with your platform. If you're putting people at risk and you're, coming out face to face with someone, I understand that may fly with people who don't necessarily view COVID as a real threat, but at the same time, 60% of the country does. You're alienating a big portion and, making it very difficult for them to actually want to vote for someone, especially with the incumbent president who's supposed to be on the side of public health coming out and sending his supporters to go, not supporters, but volunteers and campaign workers to go knock on doors. That's going to be a big issue that I think is going to, plague the Trump campaign, no pun intended. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join, and then a video that you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 election predictions. I'm actually going to be making a video with all of those soon. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.